The SaaS-enabled marketplace, that's where the magic started to happen because the experienced players were now moved to the marketplace. They kept on with their routine of booking 1 week in advance, so it was not solving their problem. But for the last minute users, there were more and more clubs coming because the network found some synergies and some positive effects, like first club gets in Playtomic, the users enjoy using the app. Then the second club, the neighbor club, finds in a competitive disadvantage because their technology is worse than Playtomic. So then they join the network. And now we have a bit larger network of players. And the magic of this model is that no marketing investment since that day. That brought us to the 1 million active players without any advertising, and higher recurrency on the player side because there were some clubs that were not happy with this marketplace fighting with their website. With this model, they were bringing 100% of their availability to the network.
Ciao, io sono Marco Imperato e questo è il podcast di Product Heroes. Product Heroes è il punto di riferimento in Italia per il product management. Finora abbiamo aiutato oltre 180.000 persone tramite master, formazione in azienda, guide, articoli e meetup. Lo facciamo anche attraverso questo podcast in cui intervisto product leader che spaccano e che potranno darti tantissimi consigli utili per migliorare il tuo modo di costruire, lanciare e muovere le metriche del tuo prodotto. L'ospite di questa puntata è Pedro Clavería, co-fondatore e Chief Strategy Officer di Playtomic, la più grande piattaforma per club e giocatori di padel e tennis in tutto il mondo, con una community di oltre 2 milioni di giocatori. Pedro ha lavorato in Utenti, che per molto tempo ha rappresentato l'alternativa a Facebook nel mercato spagnolo. In seguito è stato Global Venture Developer presso Rocket Internet e poi Entrepreneur in Residence per il lancio di Global Savings Group. Pedro ha guidato Playtomic come CEO da gennaio 2017 a maggio 2023. Da maggio 2023, quindi di quest'anno, è Chief Strategy Officer e continua a seguire e contribuire alla crescita della piattaforma. Questo episodio con Pedro è veramente fichissimo. Pedro infatti ci racconta di come Playtomic sia stata capace di raggiungere 2 milioni di giocatori nel mondo ed essere presente in 50 paesi. In questa intervista Pedro racconta passo dopo passo la storia di Playtomic fino a oggi. Gli inizi difficilissimi, con una piattaforma praticamente inutilizzabile e il lavoro all'interno di un mercato come quello del padel praticamente inesistente. Poi la vision e la capacità di trovare i fondi necessari per realizzarlo. La creazione di quello che tecnicamente è un SaaS-enabled marketplace, argomento di cui abbiamo già parlato abbondantemente in questo podcast. E la volontà di focalizzarsi su una nicchia ben precisa. Decisioni che poi hanno permesso al team di raggiungere i numeri che abbiamo appena citato. Parliamo anche tantissimo di metriche, North Star, strategia, come alimentare i marketplace e tutte le decisioni necessarie che hanno portato Playtomic da essere un marketplace normale alla piattaforma più utilizzata oggi per giocare a padel, sicuramente nel mondo è 100% in Italia. Insomma, non puoi perderti questo episodio. Se ancora non l'hai fatto, ti chiedo anche di lasciarci una review a 5 stelle su Spotify o sulla piattaforma su cui ci stai ascoltando. Questo ci aiuterà ad impattare ancora più persone e a diffondere ancora di più la cultura di prodotto in Italia, che poi è la nostra missione. Adesso non mi resta che augurarti buon ascolto e ricordarti che dopo i tempi duri vengono sempre tempi eroici. Hi Pedro, welcome to Product Heroes.
Hey Marco, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So we are very curious about your story. I checked all around. You have a very different background. I found all the context you made before starting traveling around the world. So I would like you start from there and then switch to the topic of today, that is obviously the company you co-founded is Playtomic.
Yeah, great. So again, thanks for having me, and it's great to see this community. It's about product. I really admire what you do. So yeah, my story starts from a very humble family. I was the ambitious one. There was no entrepreneur in my inner circle, but I always was in the working mode, having summer jobs to get some money, then to spend it in crazy things. I was not saving money at all, but just spending in cool stuff. And then when I was 18, I really enjoyed gambling in casinos. It was, for me, it was like adrenaline, and it was fun. But my mom got super sad about me playing casino every day. I was doing good money.
Really?
So then, yes.
How much were you doing per day? Like roughly?
So I was playing for a team because in my background I was doing mathematics, Olympic Games for mathematics. So I know some people that know how to count. I was playing roulette, but we were making good money, and I was 18 years old, so higher than any salary that I could get in the next 5 to 10 years. And then I had to stop because it is true that it's very engaging casino, and it's very risky. So I took the knowledge from casino and I applied to social media context. So there were contests from big brands like Coca-Cola, like Heineken, like television shows, and beating the odds in this contest were bread and butter, super easy, right? You're playing against people that are just applying to try to win. If you apply to win, then you have higher chances than anyone. So that got me to earn around 250K in contests when I was
Really?
between 20 and 22, 23. But it was not only the price value, but it was the experience, because it was the boom of Twitter, the boom of Facebook, and it was more about creating great content for social media for the big brands. So most of the prices were experiences, and such as world round trip paid by Heineken, master in social media in Silicon Valley with Mark Zuckerberg. I was buying some cars, I was buying some money, I was buying some laptops, and for me it became like a full-time job. And long story short, I that made me grow in social media myself. So I became the most influential person in Spain because I reached around 120K followers in Twitter around 15 years ago. So, and that's how I somehow put myself into this startup game, because Rocket Internet came to me, hired me because I knew about marketing, about growth hacking, how they name it today. And that's how everything started.
So, and what was the switch between, I would say, playing around social media and becoming an entrepreneur? What triggered?
So for me, the main trigger was meeting in person and spending time with Mark Zuckerberg was a game changer.
Really?
Because you read in the articles, you read about these big profiles, big names, right? And somehow we tend to imagine a different person than they are. At the end, they are human beings as you and I, and meeting them in person, spending time with them, seeing that they have same problems as us, they have same interests as us, and for them, building the company was another job. Of course, super successful. It was an eye opener, and then I felt like, okay, I know how the 7-Eleven work scheme works, because my father worked his entire family for one company. And then I met this super young guy who built an empire that was very normal, very humble, with unlimited resources. And of course, I took that as an inspiration. But I never expected to be successful, though.
So, talking about success. So, before jumping into the story of Playtomic, which are the numbers right now?
For numbers from Playtomic. So Playtomic is a Madrid-based startup with offices globally, present in 50 countries. The service is used by tennis padel players globally, and by tennis padel clubs globally. In numbers, around 165 employees today. We were 220 a year ago. We do about 18 million euros in transaction volume every month. From those, around 13 are paid through the app. And from those, we take around a percentage. All in all, it's around 10%.
So how many players do you have? So how many matched plays every month? So, and the supply and demand,
Okay,
how
yeah.
many clubs
So
and people?
yes, you're right. So we are a marketplace. We connect clubs with players and players with players. Club with players, the transaction is a booking. We have around 600 k bookings. It depends on the season. And players to players, the transaction is we arrange open matches, how we call them. We level every player and we arrange open matches so they have fun and it's a competitive or just for fun match that everyone enjoys. We call them the perfect match. Of those 600k, it's around 15%. So one every seven, one every eight matches are played open, whereas the rest are traditional bookings. And then about players, 1 million active players per month. We don't count players that are not using the app.
Okay.
So we call them, of course, monthly active players. About registered players, I lost the count, but I think it might be around 3 million euros. So very little amount of players that just downloaded the app and not using them compared to other benchmark.
That's pretty interesting to me because talking about product, sometimes like CEOs or founders are very excited about these vanity metrics like 10 million people downloaded my app and like 100,000 are using it. So the fact that you are counting just what matters to you, let me think that you are very focused and you are very clear understanding of the funnel, the
Absolutely.
growth, the flywheel.
No, we try to avoid the vanity metrics. It is also true that it's because even though we raised in total 70 million euros, it's been friends, money, personal investments, and we just have one VC, which at the end makes you being more protective with the business than if we were like in continuous fundraising, playing the American game of big
Okay.
rounds, so on and so far. But it is true that we never consider registered players as a metric for us, because at the end we are all about creating perfect matches, right? Whereas if it's a booking, if it's an open match, we care about the transaction, and the transaction can only happen if you have active players, right? We are also very conservative with the email marketing, because at the end, this is not a last minute business. It's more like a lifestyle, a hobby, and those that play or are willing to play, they are very recurrent. They are very engaged with the network, and for us, it's more like building product for them. So hopefully, they play better and more.
So right now you're talking about 1 million users using the app actively. But my question is, okay, that's great, but how did you start? So you had zero, nothing. Now you have 1 million. What was the process? And we all know that it's very hard to build a normal product. It's like super hard to build a marketplace because you have multi-sided, you have to build different products for different users. Now you're telling us that you added one more layers, that is players to players. So we
Yep.
get more into that later. But how did you start? Like when you had this idea, what was the first move?
Okay. Yes. And it's a very it's a great story. I really enjoyed the ride. It's been 6 years. Well, 6.5. So everything started with a software as a service. We started acquiring management software for sport facilities. It was a very broad product. It was a legacy product already. It had at that time 7 years of coding from just one developer, right? So we acquired this software as a service, and they already had a portfolio of clubs, around 400 clubs. Not only padel, not only tennis, but clubs, or even they had beauty salons for nail painting or dentists, right?
Okay.
That was chapter 0. You go buy a management software. Then everything starts, right? We hired the team, we hired a great CTO, we hired great developers, and the goal was, okay, let's understand the coding of this software, because the former CTO of this SaaS stepped out a few years before. So we tried to understand the code, and we found out it was a pure spaghetti code that whatever you touched, it broke some other links in the other part. It was crazy times. We had up to 8 engineers trying to refactor this management software, and we didn't succeed. And a lot of complaints came because the software was going down every other day. It was for real crazy. So then chapter 1 starts with, okay, now we have the 400 clubs using this same technology, right? Let's build a middle layer, an aggregator that calls every club and aggregate the offering, the availability of all of them in the same language. So we can build a product that is the consumer product that will display an aggregated view on the availability for all the clubs connected to the software as a service. So that was chapter 1, traditional marketplace, where you had two options as a player. You could go to the club's website one at a time and check if they had availability, or you could use Playtomic to check all the clubs around you using our software in just one click, right? But the fact that there were two different sources or two different channels for making this search and booking, it was a nightmare because the users that were playing always in the club, in the same club, they knew that the website was okay. For them, there was no need to move to another club, right? But they were more experienced than the users that we were acquiring through paid marketing, which were downloading the app and were in the need of finding a slot in any club, right, around them. But it was more like a last minute transaction. So experienced users were taking the golden spots, and then we were paying for last minute players that were not finding any availability in the app, right? So the liquidity of the marketplace was very limited because we had no content.
Okay.
And it was very expensive, and it was very time consuming because we had to acquire the players. We were playing the marketing game. All the graphs in our pitch to investors were like a skyrocketing hockey stick, but the business was not working at all. It was not profitable. The profit on the second channel, the marketplace, was between 20 and 10% commission. But at the end, we were competing against the clubs, right? So they were our frenemies. We needed them. They were using our
Frenemies is very good word.
yeah, they were our frenemies. That's how we call them. They were enjoying the use of our software as a service for several years. Then they saw that we were playing and investing a lot of money in an app, which was okay. And we were saying, hey, we will be the Airbnb, the booking. But it was not working. They were not seeing the value add on being part of the marketplace. And in between chapter 0 and chapter 1, we spent around 5 million euros. Bankrupt came, and we had no business, right? Because the SaaS was not scaling at the pace that we were targeting, and the marketplace was not performing as expected. So we tried to raise funds super hard because the metrics were very, very little at that time, especially in the marketplace. And 99% of the investors said no to the business. Why? Small market, total addressable market was very small. So how many padel clubs were 5 years ago in the world? They didn't even know padel in most of the countries. Traction was not there. The metrics were very, very small. And for those very few metrics that we had, the numbers were not interesting enough. Little take rate, expensive acquisition cost. If you multiply with the other factors like smaller total addressable market than any other business, and no traction on no growth, it was very hard. But luckily we found one VC. It's called GP Bullhound, that understood our vision, that at the end, chapter 0 and chapter 1 were just steps towards the end goal, which is we have two goals. Goal number 1 is to make people play more, right? Goal number 2 is to make more people play. And we believe that the technology can enable that. So they found this very interesting. There was a wide ocean, right? No competition at all, and they put a small ticket. But we had the problem that the business was not working. So chapter 2 then is that we decided to kill the club's website, to kill the marketplace approach, and we became a SaaS-enabled marketplace.
Okay.
It's very similar to the second step. So it's very similar to a standard marketplace. The main difference is that the SaaS-enabled marketplace became the only source, the only channel for the players where to book. And the deal with our frenemies was that this is not going to be 20, not going to be 15, not going to be 10% commission. It's going to be between 2 and 4%, more or less.
So the main difference, just to understand and to recap, was at the beginning when things were not working. Was at the beginning you had like the competition between, let's say, the open market you were creating, in which you were doing paid marketing, and you were getting a very small percentage, and customer lifetime value was very low, I think, because it was last minute booking. So you had very little retention. On the other side, you had super retention, but there were advanced users that were playing inside a single club, so they had no interest in moving.
Exactly.
While and these things were different. While what you decided to do was moving towards this SaaS-enabled marketplace, in which, in order to book anything, you had to do it through the club anyway, and you will get. I mean, as a club, you will get like 96, 94, 95% of the booking. Is that right, or am I missing something?
No, you are absolutely right. It was not an easy decision to kill this white label for every club or private environments, whereas clubs and their community were connecting. But why did we take this hard call? Because at the end, that was getting us to the end goal, which is making people play more people playing, right? Because we believe that at the end, there's a huge problem where finding the real estate, so the court where to play, is getting harder. Especially, there's a negative network effect. The more people play, the more demand.
The less courts there.
Exactly, the less availability. So the harder to find the court. So the only way to bridge this negative network effect was to increase the availability. So to increase the supply for that unique user that is willing to play. And then the second and the hardest problem is sometimes we don't know with whom to play, or playing with friends is not as entertaining as competing with level players. So we moved to a SaaS-enabled marketplace. We killed the club's website. We brought down the commissions to the clubs, so they became our friends. And we somehow worked hard to prove that being part of a network for the clubs was at the end converting into more revenues for them because people were playing more. Because today they might not play at your club because your club is fully booked, but if they keep playing, they will come back to you. At the end, the game is to make racket sports a hobby, a lifestyle, so then people will keep on playing for the next 20 years, and that only happens if you play, right? If today you and I want to play tennis, there's no court, then same happens the next week, and then the week after we end up saying, hey, we move to other sports, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But by
So
checking, sorry, please go ahead.
no, so that's in a nutshell, that's chapter 2. 0 SaaS, 1 marketplace with a SaaS, 2 SaaS enabled marketplace, and that's where the magic started to happen.
So before getting into the retention and the growth strategy, I want to point out that you are very, I checked the line, you are very connected to the sport in general.
Mm-hmm.
You're a very, I think,
Yeah.
active person. Why do you have such a strong connection with the sports and hobbies and this kind of lifestyle?
So I'm the only founder that I was not an avid player. Uh, I'm not as active in playing tennis or padel as my co-founders Felix and Pablo. But why I decided to leave everything behind and start into sports industry as a like professional, right? Working for the sports industry, which is not as profitable as working for fintech, working for online marketing that I was doing before. It's because at the end, I see that we are in the mission of having a positive impact on our users, and that's invaluable. That's priceless, because at the end we see people that are now meeting new friends through Playtomic, and it's just being more connected to the business other than just making money for having in my bank account.
Okay, great. Congratulations.
But I personally, I thank you, but I'm personally very active in doing sports because I care about my health, and I see the correlation between being active and staying healthier. So, and then just to close chapter 2, the SaaS enabled marketplace, that's where the magic started to happen, because the experienced players were now moved to the marketplace. They kept on with their routine of booking 1 week in advance. So it was not solving their problem. But for the last minute users, there were more and more clubs coming because the network found some synergies and some positive effects, like first club gets in Playtomic, the users enjoy using the app. Then the second club, the neighbor club, finds in a competitive disadvantage because their technology is worse than Playtomic. So then they join the network. And now we have a bit larger network of players. And then the go-to-market starts spinning, because the third club comes, then is the fourth club. And the magic of this model is that no marketing investment since that day, that brought us to the 1 million active players without any advertising, and higher recurrency on the player side, because there were some clubs that were not happy with this marketplace fighting with their website. With this model, they were bringing 100% of their availability to the network.
Okay, actually, the question I was going to ask you was about the flywheels, because this is something we talked a lot in the first conversation, but you already answered. So is a mechanism in which new users will attract new clubs, because if you are not in Playtomic, basically you're not getting that users that you will be able to retain. And so as a club outside Playtomic, you will lose value not being part of Playtomic.
Absolutely. We call this, so at the end, so the flywheel for the first, I don't know, The first 1 year of a market is B2B2C. So clubs come for the tool, then they stay for the network. So how it works is that we sell the software as a service to the clubs, and we have the greatest app for their players, for their clients. It's not Playtomic's clients. So then they start using the SaaS. The players download the app for free. So we don't need to spend money because the club is telling the players, hey, go and download this new app. Then in the app, we develop some social features for the period before the match. So finding availability, split payments, some social features, and as well as for the after the match experience, which is upload score, follow the other players, post the activity, and that's how the first network or community is built. Right, the club brings the players, they interact themselves by having some social features in the app. Then we go to the neighbor club, or the neighbor club comes to us, and they also start using our SaaS. So then there are some bridge players that play in both clubs. Very little though, right? The second club will have their own community, but in between the two communities, there will be bridge users that will enjoy the use of the marketplace. Then the third club comes, and bridge users are more and more every time. So at the end, we end up building great communities like in Milano, in Rome, where we find that around 70% of the players are playing in more than 3 clubs. And not only that, but a big percentage of the players are connected to each other and are playing social, right? Which is the ultimate goal. So that's the flywheel today. Clubs bring players, and then players bring their friends. In the long term or in more mature marketplaces, we find that it's the other way around. Players bring their friends, and these friends and the initial players bring the clubs by saying, hey, uh, why don't you start using Playtomic? Check this other club in maybe Rome that is using it. It's a great app, and your technology sucks compared to what the others are using. So flywheel starts with the clubs. Then in mature markets, it starts from both sides, and they feed each other.
Great. One last question before jumping into a couple of questions from the community. A couple of days ago, we registered an episode in which we were asked from users, from our students, how do we measure product market fit? And one thing we said was that you had to be in a growing market. And it's fun to me because I was playing tennis. I've been playing tennis for my life. I was competing until 18. And then we saw padel. That could be like the fastest growing sport in history. It's like in Sicily, I am in Sicily, it's like crazy. We called it in Italian deforestazione, when you cut
Okay.
trees, but compared to the soccer fields. So they are like cutting soccer fields to build paddle courts everywhere. But what I want to ask you was just, I would say, pure luck, or did you bet on this sport because you've seen something that could prove you that this could be a huge trend for the next years?
I would say it's 50% luck, and the other 50 has been more like data and
Okay.
assets that we had at that time. But I really like this phrase that says that luck is when preparation meets the opportunity. So at the end, we were prepared, and padel, this deforestazione, was the greatest opportunity we could ever find, right? So we started as with a vision of, hey, we will be the booking.com for any sport. But when you're building a product, we found that this broad vision was not having a market fit at all, because we were only targeting the booking. And what we found in tennis, what we found in padel, what we found in team sports is that there is bigger world behind the booking, which is the social, the interaction, the competition, the ranking, friends, connections. So that data said, okay, you cannot go for calcetto and for padel at the same time. The product and the experience is different. We had, from those 400 clubs that we bought originally from the SAS, a bigger stake in padel and in tennis because in Spain was popular, and we had no money. So at the end, we came back to bootstrapping and say, okay, let's go first with padel, right? It's not our dream, it's not our booking.com vision. But then once we conquer padel, we'll go to other sports. And suddenly, this lack of the deforestazione came, and it's been a tailwind for us that padel is indeed the fastest growing sport in history, and we grow together with the market. And actually, the question we ask ourselves is Playtomic growing with the market, or is Playtomic contributing to the market's growth? And we cannot answer that question, unfortunately.
That's a great question. So one question by Alessio Di Nunzio, this is one of our students. Actually, he lives in Barcelona. He's asking, how do you set priorities in Playtomic? So basically, what's the decision tree? Do you have, I don't know, OKRs, KPI? Do you have processes?
Yeah, so thanks, Alessio. It has been changing. So originally, when we bought the SaaS, the main priority was trying to scale the business, and for that, the scale was coming from number of clubs. So priority number one was to have the best SaaS at that time, and then because of this tremendously difficult marketplace fight, supply, demand, who comes first, we've been up and down in swinging the priorities from clubs to players, from players to clubs, until the business reached relevant size and we were around 100 employees. It was not scaling and we were super messy. We implemented OKRs, and at that time we tried to have just one North Star, which for us is the open match. How many open matches are played is our North Star, because that's the end of the ladder of the maturity of a club. So because clubs with open matches are more profitable than clubs that are only booking or only academy, and players that play open matches play more than players that just use the app for booking. So that's where we found the balance between supply and demand. So that became our North Star, and then traditional OKR setting by quarters. But we are still in the learning. That was a year and a half ago, and I can see the results already.
Okay, great. Just to clarify, what is an open match?
Sorry, yes. So an open match is, instead of a traditional booking, which is Marco and Pedro wants to play tonight, where to play, that's what we call booking. It's Marco joining an open match that any player can play using the level as the main metric to match the players. So it's basically Playtomic arranging the game for 4 players in the case of padel and 2 players for tennis. That is leveled. It's somehow competitive, and yeah, we find that once the players start playing with the community instead of only with their community, so friends playing with the community, it can be one day friends, one day working colleagues, and the other day strangers. Once they start this new way of playing, they 6x as times they play. So they play 6 times more than players that are just playing with their friends with traditional bookings.
Great. You mentioned OKR. We do a lot of B2B training with OKRs, and what we see is what you said. So it's not just about like a tool to measure where you want to go, but it's a continuous learning progress on how to adjust the metrics you're going to use based on the different stages your company is facing. So you is not like strange. You change even the process, even the methodology, cutting layers or adding new layers to adapt the way in which you work.
Absolutely. We try to stick to the OKRs on a quarter basis. So once we have closed Q3, as an example now, that's the Bible. We don't change it, especially because of for product team and for the engineers. It's very hard to become again a feature factory where one day you are developing for the clubs, then the other day for the players, then we need to integrate this new payment method for Indonesia, and the day after it's legal terms from the DPO that is coming, right? So we try to be very strict with the quarterly OKRs, and at the end, the first 3 quarters were a nightmare again, like OKRs.
Obviously.
But now
Obviously.
it feels natural. The team is enjoying it, and of course, there's room for changes, but we try to stick to the methodology.
One thing that I saw is that one of the most difficult things, one of the most common problems are managers, because managers usually are used to tell people what to do because they heard something from the thing you mentioned, legal things, payment methods, because they think it's super important. So this mindset switch is a nightmare at the beginning, and is based on trust. Because you don't have it, it's impossible. But we could talk about OKR for hours, so I will step to the next one. Do you have a specific, this is a question by Stefano Martiradonna, that is a member of our community in Italy as well. Do you have a specific product marketing role in the company, or is it embedded in the product manager's one? So do you have a specific role, or do you embed the product marketing function in other roles like marketing or product management?
So it's a good question, Stefano. To be honest with you, we have just started with marketing. Remember the story from Playtomic, from clubs to the SaaS-enabled marketplace? We didn't need any marketing. We didn't need any communication. We didn't need to fire up the community so they play, because the job was done by the clubs and by the players themselves. Slowly, we are getting into the product marketing and the growth marketing, because we see that that's the instrument to increase the liquidity of the marketplace. Now that we have, imagine, one court in Sicily, if we don't arrange a match for this court today at 5 p.m., that's an asset that get lost in time, right? So we are now trying to increase liquidity through product marketing. Actually, it's led by our colleague Nicola from. He was the former founder of Prenotum Campo, one of our first
In Italy.
yes
Great.
acquisitions in Italy, and now this is we have a marketing department, but it is true that we never know if we should have product marketing inside the product team, or product marketing as a marketing department connected to the product. By as of today, it's a marketing team working super close with the product team, but it's run by marketing.
Okay. Last question. We are a little bit late, but I need to ask this. Which are the 3 mistakes you have made from which you learned the most? Make this question to every guest, because I think it's one of the most important source of learning for our listeners.
So my first big mistake was to underestimate how hard it is to develop a great product and a great technology. I'm not a developer. I was not a product person. I never thought we would spend maybe 30 million euros in building an app such as Playtomic. And I never expected that developing was taking that long in time. But at the end, I understood that these quick wins, this quick success, or this uh, easy to get projects are not working for us. So first, underestimating technology. Second big mistake was trying to become the next big thing by targeting everything but anything. So being the booking.com of sports, it doesn't mean anything, right? We were so, I don't know, cocky, or I don't know the word, but we were so stupid to consider that we could do it for all sports and having a vision that will make soccer players to play more, and then from one day playing soccer to then playing tennis. We underestimated the challenge, right? And it was hard for us, especially for me, to recognize that we were the padel guys, because my dreams were bigger than just being a padel app. And then the third mistake was to try to delight both parties of the marketplace at the same time, right? Like there's no parallelism unless you have unlimited resources. Um, I've been always very supportive with the vision of the players. At the end, we know they are the main actors, but I failed by not understanding that first you need to secure the SaaS, have a great product, because the flywheel was or is starting from the clubs, and then you can have the fun by developing to the players. So this parallelism maybe made us a bit slower, but it's also true that that's part of the story of Playtomic, and we've been very successful in doing so, because at the end, having the best app for the players brought us to where we are today. So those are the three mistakes that I find useful for the next endeavor that I'll take, or future entrepreneurs.
So thank you very much, Pedro. You've been great, and we hope to see you soon in Italy.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a great pleasure, and hopefully we'll see each other soon. I'll keep training my tennis, so maybe I can compete with you, Marco, or at least avoid the 6-0, 6-0. My goal is to be at least 1-6 against you, so I'll keep on training.
Great. Ok, ciao Pedro.
Ciao. Grazie mille.
Ciao. Grazie per aver ascoltato questo episodio di Product Heroes. Se l'hai trovato utile, iscriviti su YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, insomma, dove ascolti i tuoi podcast normalmente, così non ti perderai neanche un episodio. Prima di andare via, vota con 5 stelline questo podcast o scrivi un commento, una recensione. Questo ci aiuterà a raggiungere sempre più persone e quindi aumentare la diffusione della cultura di prodotto in Italia, che poi è la nostra mission finale. Quindi il podcast è soltanto uno dei tanti modi che Product Heroes utilizza per spingere la cultura di prodotti. Trovi maggiori informazioni e tutte le attività che svolgiamo su productheroes.it. Ciao e alla prossima!